It is my great pleasure to host today in our Ask the Author session Dr. Thomas Marjot, hepatologist and clinician scientist at University of Oxford in UK, who published recently a very important paper in Cell Metabolism entitled Human MASLD is a diurnal disease driven by multisystem insulin resistance and reduced insulin availability at night. As you know, MASLD is a very important disease. We try to understand the mechanism behind it. There's a whole literature on sleep disturbances and MASLD, sleep apnea syndrome, people eating during the night, and so on. But here it's much more profound than that. Dr. Marjot is a specialist of circadian cycle, and here is providing really novel, interesting insights in this disease. So first, congratulations to you and your co-authors for this beautiful paper, Tom. And let me ask you the first question about it so we can understand the paper. What is the design of this nice study?
Thanks so much for having me, Jean-Francois. It's great to be here. You're absolutely right. We know a bit about sleep and sleep apnea and Mazdod, and we also know quite a bit from rodent models that the circadian clock is very important for liver metabolic homeostasis. But what we kind of realized is that we don't know very much about the patterns of metabolism in Mazdod across the day. And so our study was designed to try and understand what happens during the day and during the night in Mazdod patients. And to do this, we performed very deep metabolic phenotyping, including insulin infusion studies and stable isotope techniques during both day and then during the night in both Mazdod patients and overweight controls. And this allowed us to really build up a picture of each individual patient's metabolism across a 24-hour period. And for us to start to ask not only what is abnormal in Mazdod, but to understand exactly when these abnormalities occur.
And so with this very effectively, very detailed, design, what did you find?
Yeah, we found that Mazdod pathogenesis isn't static, okay? It's strongly diurnal, it's really rhythmic. The major thing we found is that nighttime metabolic dysfunction is a real hallmark of Mazdod. Multiple pathogenic pathways known to drive lipid accumulation in the liver are upregulated at night. So at night, you've got hepatic and peripheral insulin resistance, you've got increased de novo lipogenesis, you've got greater exposure to free fatty acids, and this is all driven largely by insulin resistance. Typically, in metabolic disease, we know that insulin resistance is coupled with hyperinsulinemia. So you boost your insulin to try and compensate. But actually, interestingly, in our study, we found that patients with Mazdod have reduced insulin secretion and increased clearance at night. And they get this really toxic combination of both insulin resistance and relative insulin deficiency at night that understandably drives steatosis and lipid accumulation overnight. The last thing to say is that, importantly, we found that all of these diurnal differences in our patients persisted after our patients lost weight and after our patients lost fat in their liver, suggesting that there's something about nighttime metabolic dysfunction that is a primary driver of steatosis rather than just a consequence. So overall, Mazdod can be understood very much as a nighttime condition.
This is so fascinating, really, and this is opening new ways of thinking about it. So how do you see this new data impacting the field, especially in terms of what do you say to your patients?
Yeah, I think there are a few ways to take this forward. The first thing to say is that targeting nighttime metabolic dysfunction seems like a really attractive approach to tackling Mazdod. And many of the drugs that are currently being used or developed for the treatment of Mazdod and MASH target these pathways that we've been able to decipher, but we've not, as a field, really looked at timing medications to make sure that they're maximally available when you need them. So do we need to give medicines in the evening so that they're targeting nighttime metabolic dysfunction? So timing of medicines is the first thing. The second thing is it has some implications for kind of behavioral interventions. For example, will evening exercise be particularly helpful in patients with MASLD? Because we know that skeletal muscle metabolic performance at night is really bad and fixed despite weight loss. So should we be encouraging our patients to exercise in the evening? The third thing is, our findings provide really strong rationale to avoid large evening calorie loads. Okay. And in our cohort, interestingly, the largest meal of the day for our patients is at dinner. And it's a pretty toxic combination, having a large dinner and then you're metabolically unable to handle that calorie load. So trying to move your energy intake away from the end of the day seems sensible. And then finally, in terms of research, I think our work really reinforces the importance of accounting for time of day in clinical practice and experimental medicine research. When you check HOMA-IR, when you do your oral glucose tolerance test, when you look at fatty acid concentrations, you need to be thinking about time, because our study shows that it really has a major impact.
Well, you said it so well. Really, thank you so much to tell us all that with all the passion and the excitement about it. Thank you, Tom.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.